the intern in my office. She'll be here on Wednesdays, and that is Kylie Weir. So if you could please stand up. All right, thank you for being here. And then now I'll turn it over to Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce my intern this morning, and he'll be here Mondays and Wednesdays, Hayes Hummel. He's a junior at KU.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else want to introduce their intern this morning? All right, seeing none, we do have a quorum, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, and there are any requests for a bill introduction. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the first item of major discussion this morning, and that would be a briefing on the Midwest Higher Education Compact. And so I would ask that Susan Heegard, the president of the Midwest Higher Education Compact, to provide us with an update, as she does on an annual basis. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to get my glasses. Good morning. We're really happy to be here with you. Kansas is the first state that we visit every year, and we're spending 2.5 days here. I'm here with my colleagues, John Burzik-Dreyer, right there, and Jane Crosby-Schmidt. And they're both fairly new employees with the Compact, and we've had a great visit so far, Mr. Chair and members. So my name's Susan Heegard. I've been the president of the Compact since Halloween 2018. We visit every state in the Compact once a year to deliver a report. So our Compact is really, the footprint is the Midwest Census region. So all 12 states here in the Midwest. We've provided you, there's a digital version obviously on the screen here, but you also have a hard copy. Oh yeah, thanks. To look at your leisure. So on this first slide, we bring together leaders from 12 Midwestern states to strengthen post-secondary education and promote regional economic vitality. And there are 3 ways in which we focus on doing this, leveraging knowledge and expertise of higher ed leaders, whether they're legislators or leaders of institutions. We save you and other states a lot of money, which is always good to hear. And we save colleges, universities, and students money as well. And then we have a really robust research and policy shop, and John leads that work, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We were established in 1991 through the enactment of legislation enacted by the Council of State Governments Midwest Legislative Conference. I'm guessing a number of you, if you're not involved with NCSL, you might also be familiar with CSG. So we were born out of that organization, and I attend their meeting every year, and they attend ours. We're funded through member state commitments, program income, as well as foundation grants. I want to express my gratitude to your state for the $115,000 commitment that comes every year. It's a critical part of the work that we do, and we also, though, have a growing revenue stream that comes from our contract usage, and I'll talk about that with you too. Again, the member states are listed here, and you were the first state to join the Compact, so thank you for that as well. Here are our commissioners. So your state's a little bit different in that you actually have appointed alternates here in the state. So 2 from the House, 2 from the Senate, 1 from each party, and the governor has 3 appointees, I believe. And Representative Ballard has been a long time member of MEC, very involved with the Compact, and our former chair. So let's talk about the money. Your state, we like to talk about ROI, received a 55-fold return on your membership commitment of $115,000 this past year. So I'm going to walk through the key pieces of that. There's something called the Midwestern State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, or of course, like in all of higher ed, it's MSARA, and that's focused on distance education. The easiest way to explain that is that if you were an institution, you wanted to offer a program out of state, in a different state, you had to register in every state where you wanted to do that. Now you just do it once. And we oversee kind of the standards for that. And that saves institutions about $4.6 million. And then in return, of course, students benefit from that as well. Technology savings are significant, $1.4 million. We have a host of contracts. The biggest one's Dell, but Oracle, Parchment. And the important thing about that is we're an instrumentality of state government. We're written into your state statute, as all compacts are. So as a compact, our roots are in the Constitution. It allows us to do business with one or more states without the federal government's involvement unless we're bumping up against their jurisdiction, like transporting nuclear waste, which we don't do, thankfully. But the savings for you kind of occur in two ways. One is 10% roughly you save on the contract, but also there's the time that's saved. It takes a lot of time to go through that public RFP process. Because we're an instrumentality of state government, we can stand in the shoes of the contractor and do that all for you. The contract's turnkey, ready to go, but you can tailor it if you'd like. We also have we've had a master property program for years. If you were familiar with the fire at Kansas State in the library and all the damage that occurred there, we covered that loss and then began to wind the property insurance program down for a variety of reasons, but there are still some dividends coming to the state. We are, however, starting a captive insurance program. It's in its very early stages, but we'll keep you posted on that. And then finally, we wanted to also show that we invest in convenings and meetings, bringing people together to learn and share best practices. In your state, you're eligible to apply. Since we're not a bank, we have some increased revenue from our contracts. Our job is to make sure that we're turning some of that money back to you. So Kansas is eligible, along with the other states, to apply for a grant of up to $250,000. As long as it fits with our strategic plan and it fits with a key need in your state. Our understanding is there's an application in the process looking at improving data systems. We don't know much about that yet, but we'll keep you posted. That's very similar to an approach that North Dakota has taken, which is building out their data systems, linking employers and higher ed more closely. And there are a number of different initiatives that are coming from our states in this regard. 7 of your Kansas institutions will also benefit in 2026 through our health insurance contract with United Healthcare. And those states are listed, those institutions are listed here: Fort Hays and Kansas State, Pittsburgh, University of Kansas Medical Center, and Wichita State. And then finally, we've had a legacy exchange program where students could attend college in another Midwestern state for 150% of in-state tuition. That program was really robust for a long time, but as you know, with the decline in states, states are now not having out-of-state tuition. It's flat tuition now in many cases. So that program has lost some of its relevance. It's still there, but it's we're looking at it with sort of a fresh eye, trying to figure out what's next. So I like to think about us as having two sides of our business. One side is really those cost savings. It's money that you actually save. The other side of the work that we do is policy and research, the work that John and his team leads. And we really try to key in on some important issues that we hear when we're on the road. One would be the cost of textbooks. I have 2 kids that just finished college, and the cost of textbooks was just mind-blowing, frankly. And then we had all these books on hand, right? So I'm not saying books are bad, but open education resources are materials that are free to the student, and they're available online. And so we brought people together to learn about how to do that well, what are some of the protocols, and Kansas received a grant for $10,000 for that. Dual credit, dual enrollment, that's also an issue that's popped up as an area of interest across the region for all sorts of reasons, right? Some people like it because it saves students money. Others like it because it might spark interest in a student to get a certification in the trades or, experience, college for the first time. So we've brought folks together for convening to focus on the best practices there as well as how to pay for it. When the FAFSA debacle that occurred with the federal government, we brought people together a couple of years ago when that occurred to try to figure out how do you support students to fill out the FAFSA, because even I tried to fill it out with my kids and I was like rejected 3 times. So it's complicated even on a good day. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the data here. And then if there follow-up, and if you have any questions at all during the presentation or after, we'd be happy to respond to that. And John is here if you want to double down on some of the data. I'll just hit the high points. So with respect to attainment, you track above the nation and above the Midwest. Attainment really is measuring for 25 to 64-year-olds who has any credential beyond high school. So it's not necessarily a 4-year degree or 2-year degree. Could be a certification or it could be a graduate degree. But this shows where you are in the state as a state and that you're moving in the right direction. I think this is one of the most interesting slides, and so we always put it in, but this is work that the Lumina Foundation has done on attainment, and this shows Kansas compared to the rest of the Midwest. And believe it or not, all the states look a little different. For example, Indiana might have a much greater population of people that just have a high school diploma. But in your state, you can see on the blue there, 8% of people don't have a high school diploma, 23% do, 12% have some college but no credential. That's a big category. And the really interesting area that's growing and shows lots of promise are these certifications, both industry and college certifications. And then you'll see 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees, and beyond. So the messaging there, I think, is not everybody needs a 4-year degree. Some people do, some people don't. But for your state, how do you take that data, think about your economy and your business community and your employer community, and figure out what's the right way, you know, where do you want to double down and invest and focus? Another critical data point, and you look a lot like the rest of the Midwest, is to look at enrollment. This is work that's done out of the Western Compact, and this looks at the number of high school graduates in Kansas. And as you know, they're projected to decline over the next decade, driven by a decrease. So the top line is the total population. The next line down is the white population. And then the lines below that would be minority populations, and that's broken out and then also combined. So this is very similar to most states. The state that's growing is North Dakota, obviously, because of the oil business and oil industry there. But your state looks similar to others. And so, you know, I think that this is just another piece of data that's important to think about as policymakers. Here is the enrollment pool, and this is an aggregate number, but undergraduate enrollment has declined at public 2- and 4-year colleges over most of the past decade, but there's been a slight increase in 23 and 24. There's always a data lag of about 2 years, so unfortunately, but that's good news for you that we're seeing an uptick in enrollment in general. This is a migration slide. I know we got a question on this last year from a couple of you on why Colorado, what's up with Colorado? So good news for you, Kansas, you're bringing in more students than leave. This is a year after high school graduation. The question is, can you hang on to them? Are they staying here to live and work and support families and that sort of thing? So I'll mention something about that in just a moment, but we put your border states in here, and as you can see, Oklahoma's doing pretty well too, but you're really doing well in terms of bringing students in. So the next slide shows all 12 states, and on the left is Kansas. You can see the rest of the states. So Illinois and Minnesota, both a lot of, more students leave, but they tend even in those states to stay in the Midwest. In your state, if they leave, they tend to stay in the Midwest, and that's that yellow bar there. And then the red bar is those that leave the Midwest completely. There's some work that we came across in Iowa that's being done with the Census Bureau that looks at 5 and 10 years out, which to me is more meaningful. What's happening with your population and your students? And so Kansas, I don't think is participating yet, but many of the Midwestern states are. And what they were able to show in Iowa, because legislators were so concerned about keeping students home, was if they leave, they tend to come back in 5 or 10 years. They come back to be in their community, to work, to be near their families. That Census Bureau project also looks at wage data and connects degrees with jobs. And so we'll make sure that we forward that. There's a link in the back of the packet digitally, but we'll make sure we make that available to your committee too. And then finally, a price slide. We have lots and lots more data. John leads that, but we thought we'd hit the high points here. So These are two different populations of students. One would be your low income, which is Pell eligible, around $30,000. The other is median income, around $100,000 for families. And so this shows that your average net price, which is the price after financial aid, and it's for both tuition and room and board, for public 2- and 4-year institutions, this is aggregate, is higher than the Midwest. However, for your median income students, you're lower than the Midwest averages. So that's really good news. With that, I'm just going to make these resources here, put them up on the board and make them available to you. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to respond to them now, or we can get back to you afterwards. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Susan, and thank you for being here again. I know we have you here, as I mentioned before, on an annual basis. Committee, are there any questions for Susan? You did a great job, but I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chair, and
again.
everybody. Appreciate it.
All right, committee, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're just going to have an update. This kind of was a discussion topic yesterday when we had the Kansas State Fair, and so hopefully we have some type of clarification in regards to the American Rescue Plan Act money, or the ARPA expenditures. So we're going to have a brief update by Dylan Deere, the Assistant Director of Fiscal Affairs for the Kansas Legislative Research Department. Dylan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So I was requested by the chair just to do a quick review of information that was received by the Legislative Budget Committee back on December 17th regarding the expenditures of ARPA funds. As you may be aware, the deadlines for the expenditure of those funds is coming up here pretty quick. And so the LBC committee had questions about what the status is on those funds. We received a presentation from Andrea Clark, who's the director of the Office of Recovery, on those materials, and you should have that slide before you right here. I'm going to touch on some quick points on it, and also several of the agencies with some larger outstanding balances that you're going to see on this sheet are available for questions should you so desire. So turning to page 1, and this is the allocations and expenditure summary. So you had total ARPA SRF, State Fiscal Recovery Fund, awards of $1.6 billion. There was $96.5 million of accumulated interest on those funds. This interest is a little bit different from a lot of other interest on federal funds in that we had a large degree of discretion on how it gets spent. So you have a total award in there of about $1.7 billion total was available. There is no new interest going into the ARPA fund at the direction of the legislature. That's now being deposited into the state general fund. So it just shows up as revenue as normal. For project allocations, you have about $1.7 billion, which leaves a balance of around $1.6 million left in the fund. The Office of Recovery could speak to this in more detail, but the opportunity to allocate that for new programs has expired at this point, and so any new allocations, for the most part, there's very narrow exceptions, would have to be for existing programs only in those cases. And so you can see that there were 85 active projects that are currently ongoing. And of the $1.2 billion allocated, there's $914.7 million expended, and about $264.2 million remaining in dollars that have not yet gone out the door. That was as of the December update we received from the Office of Recovery. And there are 57 closed projects totaling $464.8 million on that. Turning to the next page, these are active projects as of November 30th, 2025. I'm going to just touch on a couple where there are substantial remaining balances that have not yet been expended. So the Recovery Office administrative costs of the $25.7 million that was allocated, about $16.3 million is remaining, or has been expended, excuse me, and $9.4 million is remaining to be spent. The majority of those costs go to the consultant contract in order to be able to verify and validate the expenditures that they meet the requirements. Inside the Learning Loss Recovery Program, of the $50 million allocated, $40 million has been spent, about $10 million remains. Towards the bottom of page 3, there's a Kansas City, Kansas Community College project. Of the $12 million allocated for that program, $6 million has been spent, and $6 million remains to be allocated or go out the door. There was testimony that was received by the Senate Ways and Means Committee that they have applied for release of those funds. Turning to page 4. Going to sort of the middle of the page, lasting infrastructure and network connectivity and Department of Commerce. Of the $30 million allocated, $16 million has gone out. About $14 million remains to be spent. That's a broadband connectivity program. For Community Resource Capacity Accelerator programs inside of DCF, of the $18 million allocated, $13 million has been spent. About $5 million remains. For the small town water and sewer infrastructure in KDHE, and by small town, I think that was less than 1,000 persons, is the way they designated that. Of the $10 million allocated for that, $943,000 is spent and $9.1 million remains. The Senate Ways and Means Committee received testimony that the original round of applications had some issues regarding their compliance with federal granting guidelines, but the Kansas Department of Health and Environment feels that they are now meeting those requirements. I think that went out to about 16 different municipalities currently have outstanding applications there. For the the State Defense Building Remodel Project, of the $22.6 million, 14.4 is expended, about 8.2 remains. For the larger remaining amounts, you're going to see that capital improvement projects comprise the majority of those. Turning to page 5. So mental health bed expansion at KDAD's, $22 million allocated, 15.6 has gone out, 6.4 remains. For Wichita State Biomedical Campus, once again, that large sort of capital project, 112 allocated, 23.2 spent, 88.8 remains. Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center capital improvements, another major capital improvement, about 16.6 remains. Inside of World Cup appears on 2 lines. It's AO 215 and AO 306. So there's 5.2 remaining in the first one and 18 million remaining in the second one. All right. And the Eisenhower Foundation Educational Facility, of the $5 million allocated, $2.5 million is expended, 2.5 million remains. I think there was some testimony that Eisenhower is looking for the Eisenhower Foundation, not Eisenhower himself, is looking for some additional time in order to be able to get private donations in order to draw down some of those funds. Turning to the next page, on page 6. So I'm not going to go over page 6 and 7 in detail. This is really just background information. This is projects that have been closed. So the money has gone out, the project has completed. And in the far right-hand column, what you'll see is recouped dollars, okay? And that means that there was some additional dollars that was reallocated to other projects. Some of those reallocations happened inside of the executive branch. A lot of those reallocations happened in former legislative directions. And so in former sessions, you were aware of how much money had been come back in and then made redeterminations on where those dollars should go. And so that information is there. With that, I would stand for questions. I would note that the Office of Recovery is available for questions. Department of Administration, Commerce, KDHE, and DCF are all here and available for questions, and has been made apprised of the fact that there may be a question regarding the State Fair that will be coming up as well.
Well, you read my mind, because actually I wanted to follow up on that question that we had yesterday when we had the Kansas State Fair. And as far as the ARPA dollars that was allocated for the Emergency Command Center, was it specifically for that, or was it just to the Kansas State Fair? Because we had the discussion yesterday that they wanted to, or the Budget Committee wanted to transfer that from the Emergency Command Center to the lighting project.
Certainly. I believe that will be possible, having spoken with Director Clark, but if it would be all right, I could just defer to the Office of Recovery on this.
That's fine, yes.
Yes, thank you.
And if you could, please state your name.
Andrea Clark with the Office of Recovery. The question in regards to the Kansas State Fair, the original Emergency Command Center allocation was $250,000 that was made by, actually by the Department of Administration under the State Efficiency and Modernization Program that was approved by the SPARC Executive Committee. So the State Fair at that time submitted an application that was reviewed by D of A specifically for the Emergency Command Center. And that's what the obligated agreement is set forth to spend those monies.
And so the question yesterday that was posed when we had the budget for the Kansas State Fair is that we could actually, if it falls under, I guess, modernization?
So the U.S. Treasury provides 3 pathways for under budget funds that come back to be spent. One of those pathways is you can amend a previous project obligation as long as it is within the same, substantially the same scope and purpose. What the State Fair had previously reported was that the $600,000 project that was legislatively appropriated, and I believe it was 2023 for, with ARPA dollars, was for security projects. And what the State Fair had reported to those security projects were cameras and lighting. So if desired by the committee, you could amend that agreement or that obligation of $600,000 for lighting to include the remaining dollars from the Emergency Command Center and allow the State Fair to spend the money in that way.
Okay, so the actions by the Budget Committee of moving, I think it was 230,000, is that correct? And we could
Yes.
make adjustments to where that, the ARPA dollars could be used for that project instead of the Emergency Command Center.
They would still need to be extended by the December 31st, 2026 deadline. But other than that, it would be a compliant use.
Okay, all right, thank you. A question, Dylan. In regards to like the Capitol Complex air handlers, I think the Great Bend Lab HVAC, there's a amount remaining on some of those projects, but I'm assuming are those completed? And there was just, they didn't spend as much as we had anticipated?
So if you could point me to the page.
It's page 5. The Capitol Complex is the top item. And then a little less than halfway down, the Great Bend Lab HVAC of $39,550, basically.
So Frank Burnham is available for questions if you have specific ones, but I think that there's just some punch lists that they're going through, and there's like the last dollars are being approved and going out the door, and that's kind of what you were seeing as of this December project. I mean, my understanding is that they fully anticipate all those dollars to go out the door, but maybe they had not as of this particular deadline.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions. When we look at this chart here, how do we discern which ones, I guess we could figure out some of them, like the connectivity, if it says broadband, but are these categorized in the 4 original SPARK categories of economic development or lifeline, health and human services, connectivity, and efficiency, modernization? Is that how they're
That is,
broken?
they have, each one of these different program codes, for the most part, unless you had some that were specifically allocated by the legislature. Okay, in those cases, they would not necessarily fall within that scope.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you. And just that last question. So on another handout, the slide says that there's $143 million that Kansas has received for broadband. Would that be additional federal dollars? Is that ARPA money left over? And how can we tell by looking at this chart if all of the dollars have been allocated, or again, to the chair's point, is there anything left remaining that they didn't need?
Tyler.
So there are multiple funding streams for broadband that are coming in through the Department of Commerce, and they have their own office that is dealing specifically with an office of broadband. And there have been funds that have been clawed back by the federal government. And so if you want to report on the current status of broadband, I would have to put a team together and we'd have to go back and go through all those, because there are multiple bills and multiple funding streams going to broadband in the state of Kansas right now.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in all your free time, if you're able to provide for this committee, the totality of the money that is existent in the fund, what's allocated, and what we might have available for some projects of importance for Kansas. Thank you.
Certainly, I'll look into that. James Fisher is the analyst who oversees the Office of Information Technology Services. Jacob Gillespie does the Department of Commerce. We'll sit down and work on that for you.
All right, thank you. Representative Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dylan, for your bringing us up to speed on this. I have a couple questions on the World Cup stuff, and this may be for another time, but man, do you have any explanation on the federal dollars that came in for security stuff? Is that what offset so much of the 18 million not being spent yet? And I mean, we haven't even spent 10 million of the 28 yet. It just seems like we're 4 months away and not very much has gone out the door. Just wondered if there was any explanation you could provide.
Dylan.
Mr. Chairman, so the majority of the dollars that are allocated inside of the ARPA dollars are transportation focused. And so you would not anticipate those to go out until closer to the actual World Cup. The federal dollars that came in as part of the BBB, that was focused around security. And so you would expect to see some delays. As far as specific contracts with specific amounts, I have not seen any of those, and those questions would have to go to the Department of Commerce.
I was saying the 28 million was actually allocated in, was that legislative session of 2024?
And there's two different allocations.
And there's two different allocations. First it was 10 and then it was 18. But as Dylan mentioned, a lot of that is for transportation. And so you wouldn't see those dollars expended until actually the event occurs. But it's anticipated that all those dollars will be utilized when the World Cup actually comes, and like you mentioned, in the 4 months. What was the amount of money that we did receive from the federal government in regards to the World Cup, in regards to security?
I should have prepped the answer to that question. If you give me a moment, I'll look it up on my memo. I don't have it all.
And the reason why I asked that is because we had the special committee on budget. We had, I think it was the Adjutant General's office and also the Highway Patrol asking for state general fund dollars for basically security for the World Cup. But I think we referenced that they need to talk to KC 2026 because that not only do they have $28 million was allocated previously by the legislature, but also the money that came in from the federal government. Representative Estes.
Thank you. And this may be a question for the representative from the Office of Recovery. But when I look at the line for what was awarded to people who were harmed when their businesses were closed during COVID, and is that just one person that was reimbursed?
I don't believe there was a singular individual.
Page
There was
6.
right.
So the line A0022 at 38,000, and then 49 million was reallocated. Do we know how many people received something?
I'll have to get a list. I don't think there was a lot of applications. Without editorializing. There was testimony received from the Department of Revenue during committee that some of the statutory requirements to be able to get into that program were too restrictive, and so as a result, they had difficulty getting applications in, and that's just testimony that was received from the Department of Revenue.
Because I'd like to know how many people applied, how many were approved, how many were turned down. And because when I look at these numbers, I think this has to be the best kept secret in Kansas. And I'd like to know what happened to that money, why it wasn't accessed by the people who were hurt by our decisions. Thank you.
If you could, correct me if I'm wrong, but when that money was established, the $50 million, it had to be spent within that year, or they had to have the applications within the one fiscal year. We were coming into April, and only about $40,000 of that was utilized. And so the anticipation that $50 million or $49,900,000 was going to be used by June 30th wasn't going to happen. The $18 million, I believe, for the World Cup came out of that $49 million that was remaining. We divested those money into other aspects in the bill, the budget bill, that we had for fiscal year 2025. And so we took that money back out because it wasn't going to be utilized, and then therefore was going to have to be spent on something. And so we broke it out for the World Cup, economic development throughout the state of Kansas. If you remember, we had economic development in Northwest Kansas. There was a transportation project in Southwest Kansas. There was a project in Southeast Kansas. And so we spread that money out through the entire state of Kansas. And then also, obviously, in Northeast Kansas, bulk of it went towards the World Cup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly didn't expect it all to get used, and it's a bad sign if it was. And I think we did use what was left wisely, but it just seems to me like it certainly was underutilized, and I'd like to understand why that happened.
As Dylan said, the application process was very convoluted.
And that's unfortunate. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we actually received testimony that has all this information in it, so we just have to go back and look at our records.
All right, thank you. Representative Estes, do you have a follow-up question?
No, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Dylan, it appears from what Director Clark said that if there is money here that has not been spent, it's not going to be spent, that we could take an existing allocation and put more money into that. If there, even though it's closed to new allocation, we can move money within what's existing. Is that what I'm understanding?
Dylan?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that it can be reallocated to existing projects.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I think it's a simplification, but I believe there's some hoops that the federal government asks us to jump through, but nonetheless, that's generally correct.
Within the same agency, or?
It just has to be the same project.
It's the same project,
Because
okay.
the state of Kansas is usually
All right,
proceeding.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Steele?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 6, towards the top, KSDE got $4 million for a Connect and Learn initiative, but it was 3.4 is left. Do we know if any of that's been allocated, or, I mean, not allocated, but like why we've totally recouped that back is what, so they didn't spend it on what it was for, we now have it back.
That's correct. So the pages 6 and 7 are the amounts that those are closed programs.
Okay, thank you.
And so so to think about that, if you total up the recouped, that's not money that's available to be spent because that money has already been reallocated to other programs. And you can sort of see that on the first page where you see the amount of money that has gone out the door, recouped allocations, which is the middle of the center where you see project allocations, net of reallocations, and recoupments is what that total is.
All right. Any further questions for Dylan? Representative Helgerson?
I'm sorry, I got a little confused. How much money is available for reallocation?
I believe it's on the front page. 1.5 million, almost 1.6 million.
And
At
that's,
$1.6 million, but that was as of November 30th. And so, I mean, it could have been, the reallocation could have occurred.
and
since
if
the point.
when will we be notified if some of the allocations do not spend all the money?
Dylan?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that there's a specific mechanism to provide continuous updates on those allocations or a reporting mechanism on as those dollars go out the door. And so I think that's part of the reason why the chairman requested this meeting or this update, just so that this committee knows where the spend is to date.
I would guess that after this meeting, it's going to be less.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions for Dylan? Representative Ballard?
Thank you. Just to follow up, though, but there are guidelines of how we have to spend that money.
There are still guidelines for how the money gets to be spent. That is correct. So restrictions on, paying off debt service, restrictions on just depositing in the state general fund without demonstrations of a loss of revenue. And so there are a variety of restrictions that still exist on these funds from the beginning. And I have a 50-page memo that if we'd like to go back to the COVID days, so I can pull
A
out.
question that I was asked that I don't know an answer to. Can this money be spent on safety measures?
So my understanding is, and once again, I would defer to the Office of Recovery on the details on these items. But if you had a program that was pre-existing for safety measures and you were trying to allocate it in that, then possibly. Okay. Otherwise, I think you have a lot more restrictions at this point because the deadline for new allocations has passed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other further questions? All right. Representative Estes?
Sorry to go a second time, but to follow up on the previous speakers, we could move, say, there's a line in, some lines in here like safe and secure schools or special ed. We could move the leftover money to lines like that.
If it was an existing active project, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, no.
Okay. Since they're in this document, that means they're existing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're classified as active projects,
Thank
not
you.
closed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Dylan?
I'd like to just retain a chance to go back and double check that it can't be allocated to closed projects, whether the closure is permanent. I just want to double check that piece of information.
That's
before
fine.
I say that 100%.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you for being here. And I know it was a short notice when I asked you to give that presentation, so thank you for doing that. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to our budget report outs for this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to Chairperson Wassinger from the General Government Budget, and she's going to be presenting to us the Kansas Dental Board. Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kansas Dental Board is located at the Landon State Office Building. They license dentistry and dental hygienists. They have 2,176 dentists and 3,134 dental hygienists in 2025. For FY 2026, the agency requests a revised estimate of $549,072, all from the dental board fee fund and 3 FTE positions in 2026. It's equivalent to the amount that they had been approved for in the 2025 legislature. They didn't submit any supplemental requests, and the special committee on the budget concurs with the agency's revised estimate for 26, as well as the Committee on General Government Budget. If there are any questions, I'll just keep moving on for 2027.
Just proceed.
In 2027, they have a revised estimate of $510,000, all from the dental board fee fund and 3 positions again. This is a biennial agency, and this budget for this fiscal year was also approved by the 2025 legislature. The agency's request is equivalent to the amount approved in 2025. For 2027, they didn't submit any enhancement requests. The Special Committee on State Budget concurred with the agency's revised estimates, as well as the House Committee on General Government Budget. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions for Chairperson Wassinger? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the Kansas Dental Board budget for the years 26 and 27 as presented.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Amix. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you, Chairperson Wassinger, and we'll move on to the next budget committee, and that'll be the budget report outs by Chairman Turk from the Higher Education Budget Committee. So I believe you're starting with Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board. Chairman Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got the BSRB. The BSRB is a composite board operating as 7 agencies in one, regulating professionals in mental health or behavioral health fields, including licensed psychology, master's level psychology, behavior analysis, social work, professional counseling, addiction counseling, marriage and family therapy. The agency requests a revised estimate of $1.2 million, all from BSRB fee fund in FY 2026. The revised estimate is the same amount as approved by the 25 legislature for 2026. The special committee concurred with the agency, and the House committee concurs with the special committee's recommendation in 2026. And I will stand for questions.
I don't see any questions. Go ahead and move on to 2027.
Awesome. So the agency requests $1.2 million, all from the BSRB fee fund for 2027. The revised estimate is an increase of $17,000, 17,204 above the amount approved by the 25 legislature for 2027. The increase is entirely due to the agency's requesting to increase in its expenditure limitation to continue the pay plan approved by the legislature. A special budget committee concurred with them, and we concurred with the special budget committee. So, super complicated. I will stand for questions.
All right, committee, any questions? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure there's any there on this, but I'm just a little curious about the jump in expenses. It started in 23 actually, but it has continued to increase. Is that entirely due to the FTE increase? That seems like a large number.
Chairman Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a variable, but they are also one of the agencies onboarding with OITS. I know, so without re-sifting back through these 47,000 pages to pinpoint it exactly, I would surmise that is a variable as well. I also see an increase in caseload, and from testimony, they had professional fee increases as well. So outside contracts that they would have. Those are the variables discussed in committee.
There you go. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I do see the increase in contractual services as well. That does account for some of that. I would be very interested to see the OITS increases for onboarding there. That's supposed to be a cost saver for the state. So I'd be very interested to see what that number looks like. Thank you.
Any further questions for Chairman Turk? All right, Chairman Turk, I entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the Behavioral Science Regulatory Board budget for 26 and 27.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Amix. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Chairman Turk.
So I've been on this committee for 4 years now, and that was my first budget readout. And the only one to haze me was right over there. I felt that, I don't know if that's pretty weak haze, but. But nonetheless, I was giving you kudos.
Careful what you wish.
Hey, it's okay. I think if you're going to, you do so at your own risk, and good luck. But here we go. Number 2, Kansas State Board of Healing Arts.
He was in and out of those seats, too.
Oh, okay, here you go. The board is composed of 15 government-appointed members, 12 of whom are licensed healthcare professionals from the various professions, including 8 licensed physicians. 3 are members of the public. The board's statutory mission, you don't care, that's a KSA number. All right, so the agency requests a revised estimate of 8,103,782 and 67 FTE positions in FY26. The revised estimate is equivalent to the amount approved by the 25 legislature. The agency has not submitted any supplement requests. The special committee concurred with the agency's revised estimate, and the House Budget Committee concurred with the special committee's recommendations in 2026.
I'm not seeing any questions, so move on to 2027.
Yeah. So the agency requests a revised estimate of $8,273,075, all from the fee fund, and 67 FTE positions in 27. The request has an increase of $200,129, or 2.4%, above the 25 legislatures approved numbers. This is just a reminder, it's a biennial entity, and this one was also approved in the 25 legislature. We agreed with the special committee as well in 27. Yeah, we all agreed. Everybody's agreed. So I will stand for question on this one as well.
Any questions for Chairman Turk? Representative Ballard.
I had a question, but I changed my mind.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, Chairman Turk, I would entertain a motion.
All right, the Kansas State Board of Healing Arts. I propose that we pass out the KSBHA's budget for 26 and 27.
All right, is there a second? Seconded by Representative Mosier. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. All right. Thank you to the chairpersons who reported out this morning. That is all of the items that we have for this morning's meeting. I would like to direct you in regards to the ARPA discussion that we had earlier. We do have some documents from the Kansas Department of Commerce and also from KDADS in regards to the ARPA money that was allocated to those particular departments. We did not receive anything in regards to any of the other departments that had received ARPA dollars. With that, we will be adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.